Well, good afternoon. It is always a pleasure for me to read here. That's my second reading here at Clayton State. First, it was for my first book. Now it's for the second, so it's pretty nice to be here. I'm going to start with a few poems from my first book, Fence Above the Sea. That collection was really about dealing with my father's passing away, and then how you live afterward. I mean, you question everything, and then also about not having a father anymore, which is the case for my daughter, who doesn't have a father either, and so there was a connection. But anyway, when I write, I listen to music all the time, and you may recognize in this poem some lyrics which have made their way into this poem, and it would be lyrics from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Overlooking the river. What is really important, she thinks, when she walks through a crossroad and her hip bone sets her on the edge like a door. If there is chocolate powder, why do they eat oatmeal? She calls an old friend when the future scares them stiff from a desk. When she opens a bead curtain, the daughter tells her of horses, and she says, "The cat likes this electric guitar." There is news from Australia, and there is always a risk in netting Western dollars. That her world fits in a notebook carries a strange fragrance when she wants to escape to a forest. Simply put, I saw your love stream flow. Where are the violins in this prime vantage point? She likes the zephyr song in the perfect weather, and oh, won't you? The daughter wants to be an ambassador, and there is a form to sign. In the next poem, I'm mentioning the Scotlet frieze, which is a mural painting by Gustav Klimt. I love his work, and obviously it shows because he's on the cover of the book. And I also have a couple of quotes that I have used here from Marguerite Duras from her book The Lover, L'Amant. It's called Decorative Emptiness. When they pull up in a driveway at the edge of the woods, the daughter counts her rich friends, she says, and she looks inward for a love statement. They are swollen, these faces who sit in a place of distress. She likes to drink coffee with a cat on the ottoman, and her mind escapes to a glass turtle. You must not destroy the habits of the poor. When a winter sun calls on her from the other side, she weeps. If she says she is a writer, she must write, and it is a lonely place to announce. An image of intolerable splendor. It is like the Scotlet frieze on the walls of a Belgian dining room. She throws words at her face against a white wall, and there is her red hair in the way, always. And the last, no, actually, maybe not the last one. This one here has one, I'll say it's a jam for the ladies and the superstars, and that's not mine, that's Moby, okay? Festive uncertainty. A man who has no memory of this is lost. This is the daughter, and this is the anticipation to find out when the lights go off and she makes her bed on the couch. If they hear the wind when the window panes are frosted, it is a cold morning. There is no father in the bed under the sheets. There is another woman's hand on her thigh. C'est reposant, un écrivain. Souvent, ça écoute beaucoup. A cat sleeps on the ottoman and another one sleeps by the daughter's heart. She ties a black scarf around her face. Les dernières minutes de la vie d'une mouche ordinaire. This is a blue outfit when they bake apple tarts with heavy cream and lemon pies in music. It's a jam for the ladies and the superstars. There are candles on the table and lights in the tree. I'll stop with this book because I think it's time to get to the new book. So I'm going to read from The Dazzling Land, and I'm going to start by reading the first crown of sonnets. This book is framed by 2 crowns of sonnets, and I'll explain what those are for those of you who do not know. Those are 7 sonnets, and the first line of the first sonnet is also the last line of the 7th sonnet. And then the last line of the first sonnet is also the first line of the second sonnet. And the last line of the second sonnet is also the first line of the third sonnet, and so on and so forth. And so it's a crown. And because I am from France originally, I thought I would use Alexandrines as opposed to, to using a more Anglo-Saxon sort of foot measure. And also, but my poems actually are rhyming. There is a rhyme scheme, which is, something I don't do very often. So anyway, this first crown here is called Craving for a New Harness, and each title of for the title of each sonnet is actually taken from Samuel Beckett's Text for Nothing. 1, a handful of petals. Imagine a French woman buried in a map, days spent with the book of margins and blue papers. You fell on me like a parachute artist gap. But outside my window, do they live on flowers? Give me the inertia of a red ottoman wrapped in a snowball chenille, a sulking sun fatal over the Arabian Peninsula, a crown of thorns, a modern version of Byronic exile. Oh, je suis une femme rompue, you said in English. The impulse was to challenge domesticity. Slipping away, I dreamed my hands within your reach. Walls bent into alcoves, a possibility. Touch the shadow of irises under your eyes. We fed on sentences until words made up lies. 2, no more is known. We fed on sentences until words made up lies. At night you smothered my misery with a chest full of eyes, your head against my sliced open thighs, a hoarseness in your voice and a handful of dust. We swallowed shattered lights, slept in a messy song. Eyes shaft with ice, I pointed at the empty spot in your chest, a severed heart wrapped in a sarong. A terrible thing to watch, like a garrote knot. Your mouth turned blue with want, your shallow breath chord sounds for me to strike alive in a cloud of stolid fate. We loathed dying at the mercy of starving hounds, built a quiet stage to unfold our wings while they slept. Those brilliant hours that wore away our days. And still our wheel wound under murky waterways. 3, sometimes they let each other go. And still our will wound under murky waterways, stronger than your defeated smile, a cathedral of bones waiting for us, a sulking temple's gaze at the edge of a sea cliff, like a cruel mural. We stood in dust, bodies wrapped in carnation veils, heads shaved in illumination, hands cupping fire to spark sandalwood splinters in motion. Fight the stench of years spent in a corridor fling. You were prone to dreams, trapped in a voiceless throat. The sun rises under the pillar of your tongue. A magician reciting my heart's single note. And when the door opened at the stroke of a song, a fit of sleeplessness forced you to end the siege. On my way to the world, I swayed like a rope bridge. 4, they all refused to take me up. On my way to the world, I swayed like a rope bridge. The outline of your mouth on my scarf on one side, the celebration of beatitudes, fear, edge on the other, empty signs ready to collide. You stumbled out of your shoes, walked past the moment, nothing left. There is solitude in poverty. Turning around to catch a lasting torment, you realized we had lived in a fantasy. When I called your name, you showed me the ashes of a kiss, lighter than clouds, how things withstand their shape. Your distress spread on your arm like a glove, oh love. A future of handprints to wear like a new gape. I heard the ocean sigh, and to imagine us drinking elixirs of forgiveness in a bath. 5, the palings had changed position. Drinking elixirs of forgiveness in a bus. The bridge was of brass wire, my mouth on fire. A diversion from your spirited radius. A city of oak trees. We caught a flutter, tied its resplendent wings onto a burlap sack. You leaned on the page, craving for a new harness, while my severed art dried stark on a cooling rack. Oh, how I would like to believe in tenderness. Outline of knives in the distance. Like a stillborn sign in your dreams, your mother drank your sentences, the way we swayed in our battered beetle boots, torn to quiet splendors. Frankly speaking, these dances had no place in this theater of cruelty. Pa, intimacy, take my heart to the laundry. Flat then on my back, I saw nothing. Oh, intimacy, take my heart to the laundry. I could not bear the sound of life's splendid tremors. Winged victory blind her with tenacity. You dropped a sea of red camellias by locked doors, walked past a vision of the future without us. The air was shattering like a drunken shaman. And to think I mistook you for a cruel impulse. Was I looking when he sailed away on a swan? We sat in the dark listening to the night, watched a constellation of skyscrapers outside, your mouth whispering a throbbing chant like a bite, something like wail of translation, a tree, a child. Caught up in the moment, we entered our bodies, hands folded in our pockets to resist worries. 7, the general effect was the same. Hands folded in our pockets to pass up unrest, we escaped in the blueprint of people falling from our ships. Nothing we could do. You said it was best to skip the narrative. Flash back to me, darling. After stumbling in domesticity, we ran. Everything was left wide open, the land, the sea. In a modern moment, we designed a new plan, something unsettling, like drinking ceilings. Lassie, a strange of strangeness is not always conducive to my amazement. Disconnected signals, a flutter of wings, a confused song, a naive, bated breath echoing mystical revivals. Was it really about traveling from a gap? Imagine a French woman buried in a map. So, then, I wanted to read maybe a couple of poems from the middle of the book as well. In this poem, which is called Life as a Soundtrack, I'm making a reference to a bridge which is carved by the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. It's in France, and it's carved in the coast. So it's called Le Pont du Diable, and it's a pretty cool place to visit in the southwest of France. Life as a soundtrack. Her family history was based on a river, and she entered the field of poetry. What else was there to do when her western view was a broken glass at the bottom of a pool? All this French landscape hit her like a breath, a cloud, a rock. When she saw her first lagoon, it was under Le Pont du Diable. There is always a bridge leading you to fall. Her Americanized breath shortened under the weight of French words, like, Je suis tellement triste de partir. She left her old country to get lost in a car. I can't believe I'm doing this, she said before kissing her. Shake her like this breath on her neck, her hand on this knee, bury her in a cloud, throw her back to the river. This other poem here is called Chaotic. I don't know if I pronounce it properly. Don Quixote? Okay, Chaotic Cooking. And I'm making a reference here to Faulkner, first and shortest, I mean not first, but shortest chapter in As I Lay Dying. Sort of appropriating that as a first line for my poem. And besides that, I also make a couple of references to Carson McCullers' The Ballad of the Sad Café. And there we go. Chaotic cooking. My mother is a fish, she said. Everyone knows the effect of routinizing memorable reading. By the time she found a man writing with a libertarian spirit, she had already reorganized her eyes and moved to an alternative way of excitement. She gorged on her misplaced husband each night, loved this achievement, fight against windmills, giants, and all. A chimera, she said, and I am a pavane pour orchestre avec cœur, playing around to pound down my reputation. Gone were the days when she ate with her eyes. She wrote words by his side, like son regard langoureux, ses yeux de merlan frit, when she thought about wild, extravagant, and beautiful as the poison lilies of the swamp. She came from a different country. It is difficult to accommodate those who love conservatively. She battered her heart with strange loneliness and walked out. For a moment, you saw a French woman in a Superman t-shirt compete with the American design. She was roughly the equivalent of a muscular lover. The value and quality of any love is determined solely by the lover himself. Where is sexual ambivalence when a comparison eludes the problem as if it were a metaphor? She cooked her hand to rule out the future. And one more here from the middle of the book. It's called Architectonic Angelus of the Mother. The day I visited my mother in her stone house, the sky was a clouded heart, a vision of emptiness. She was without tricks in her bag. We ran down the cliff to slash our bodies against metallic waves. That's stupid. Pass me the lighter. Worn-wise by wanderings, she was a woman, the sea. Spilled out our bodies, her purple heart. We clung to each other, and words got in the way. She rose with the wind hovering above the stone house. I just needed help with the bag. There, blurred water, an exchange, a vital letter in her, like the stage to an infinite fire. She clutched my throat with her feet, the ape, and my hands sunk into the darkest sea. I followed my mother, laughing like a sore mirror. Was she a deserted garden, a dead ape thrown into a bag? The night I left, my mother, stone house, sky, watched me while I hurled her heart at the flames. And then finally, I'm going to read you the last crown of sonnets, and it's called This Is How We Disappear. And there are a couple of references to the Fauviste movement. It's a painter's movement. And a reference to Heidegger, and a reference to Sylvia Plath as well. Actually a quote from Sylvia Plath. This is how we disappear. 1, there must be a body. I am a French woman caught in this dazzling land. Was everything illuminated on the way? I went down in flames, crashed into your open hand. To offset my missing world, you mapped out a play. I wanted your tongue on my skin. I wanted you. Turned your body into a summer rain, sound, firm, to woo me. And to think you knew the words are new. Parfois il y a des fleurs à donner, a term of solitude, murdered by an ocean of red, flowers by my door hidden in the surrounding things to dispense a feeling of missed steps ahead. It was a stretch to compare your gesture to swing. I felt your heart in my chest, your lips by my ear. Oh, do not crush my wings with your boots. I'll stay here. 2, no resemblance with anything. Oh, do not crush my wings with your boots. I am here to feed you blue words, caught late by a yellow light. There is always a frame wrapped around each premiere. Frankly speaking, is there always pain at first sight? You wrap my wrist in your hand and there is no sound in this profundity for you. There is a swan waiting for us to die for nothing. There, hell-bound. Oh, I know the meaning of yearning after dawn. We walk toward a lake like luminous linguists. On the other hand, This is a shark skin jacket. Toi, tu sais tout, je ne sais rien, comme les artistes. Oui, laisse-moi penser pour toi, elle est vide ta tête. Will you find my missing words when your tongue becomes the sound of my body, when the rope bridge succumbs? 3. How the intervals were filled. The sound of my body sways. The rope bridge succumbs. I am lost in this happiness, and you do not see the metaphors under my skin beating like drums before the execution of this. Shall I flee? In other words, the day is dark in spite of you. Back to a gesture, we are a clutter of limbs. It's understood. Here, this is a settling debut. Oh, make me faint soon to forget her shattered dreams. It's mechanical, this fear, always. Empty head, sliced open thighs, emergency of size, wing case. Where are the phenomenal features of instead? Clearly, there is life beyond this numbness in space. Nous nous enfermons dans une chambre pour ne pas nous taire. It's pleasant there. You fold your fingers in my hair. 4. This tone is promising. It's pleasant here. You fold your fingers in my hair. I enter my body to find it there, worn, one. Cette vie qui passe sans qu'on la sente. A dreadful lair. Cette vie qui laisse des traces sur le corps. Oh, turn on your longing lips. I cannot take these spinning fits. This is how we disappear. An unfocused gaze, a fluttering in the head, an emo kid's blitz. This is how you pull me into a Javanaise. This is how I am this way, humming a French song. Where are the fantastic hair-splitting arguments, the bright radiations of her laconic gong, the anecdotal contraction of her torments? I am a cloud, a shadow standing outside her landscape like an impressionistic sequence blur. 5. The vacancy is tempting. In her landscape is an impressionistic blur. Shall I nail her to my wall amidst red paintings like a Donatello parmi les fauves? After her cantos, red once, distorted under nothings. I find you sitting on a bench, smoking your spleen away in a fundamental attunement of boredom. Oh, melancholy, lead me to the scene where I rest my empty head on your glove, oh love. It's true. There is always a plain window to catch colors in this established theater, red, blue. At night, you follow my syllables to attach sounds to your guitar to play a forest of through. And suddenly, jazz, we forget to fold our hands in our pockets to pluck heartbeats from naked sands. 6. The eyes take over. In your pockets, I pluck heartbeats from naked sands. At this point, my fingers find a way to write down this floating landscape into narcotic lowlands. You channel a sensuous fog in my tea gown. It's not a small matter, this exposed fire. Later on, I sit amidst laminated woods, like a gasp at your smoke-flavored radial desire, like a splintered solitude stuffed with granite goods. I open my lunch on a hill of black cypress. Will you eat my blues when you come dressed in a shark-skin jacket? See, I'm back to the lake to digress. I am covered with peppermint screams a torn spark in the face of her wreckage. You worry my lips as your hands smile at the thousand swirls of my hips. 7, a little resolution is all that is needed. With your hands, you trace the thousand swirls of my hips into splintered splendor. Shall I sing in color? You name the atmosphere after a blue eclipse, like a flickering mystic, a slick propeller. Wrapped in the echo of an aching stone, I fled, the end of the world, her cyclonic wounded grip, her, a life slanted by torn flowers, a timed thread. Shall we string words together in a comic strip? Give me your solitude. I will turn on the glow of catalytic fixes for you. I am nude under this demolished lipstick as we let go of fear. There, always the body, crashed here, unglued. Then again, this is what you have to understand. I am a French woman caught in this dazzling land. So, I'm all open for questions. Yes.
I was not familiar with the crown of sonnets
Mm-hmm.
before. It's fascinating to me, and I'm wondering when you decided that that's what you're going to write. Do you begin with the theme? Do you begin with the lines? Do you end one sonnet and think I'm done with that one, and now I'm 60 days before I post the next one? How do you write?
No, no. I'm French, so I understand that French people start always their sentences with no. So there I am. I did it again. But no, actually, again, when I write, when I start a project, I usually am obsessed with something. The first book was my mother. This one was a split, various different splits. Relationship or, identity, country, all these things. The one after this will come out later was this sort of fictionalization of these two characters. Just made up, but then they're not really made up. They're also involving me, so I'm one of them, sort of, but it's fictionalized. So I have these obsessions, and so I write from those obsessions. And so when I decided to write The Crown of Sonnets, I just wanted to play with form a little bit because I had just written a collection of prose poems, and I thought, well, maybe I should do something completely different. And what can be more different than adhering to a strict form and then doing on top of that the crown of of sonnets. And I started with this idea of being a French woman, and then I went from there. And it was of course, when you have to deal with a rhyme scheme, and you have to count your syllables, that's what I do, I count syllables. That's the way I do the feet thing. Then, you want to say something, but then you can't really say it exactly the way you want to say it. You have to change it. And so it was and so to answer your question, once I was finished with one poem, I knew I had the first line. But then I had to, sit down and just, look for how it was going to go. But it was all, the feeling was there. It was just I had to look for words.
Did you know where you were going to end up? I know that you know what the last line is going to be, but do you know know, or is that an act of discovery as you're writing?
I discover. I don't sit saying, I'm going to write about this. I don't ever do that. I always sit and then I just write. But because I am always, I'm conscious that I'm in a project and that I am, into this obsession, sort of. It always works out where things continue. And right now I'm working on a different project. It's again a couple, but it starts in just before World War II in France, and it's the same thing. I'll finish one poem, and then I'll go from this poem and go into the next one. I don't write a bunch of poems and then try to arrange them. I follow. There's a thread in that way. But sometimes, though, when I put the book together, I may have to rearrange a little bit. Yeah? Yes?
Like every good teacher I know, I'm checking the time so I don't let my students down, but like every good teacher I know, you teach students to find their own voices.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you avoid becoming so emptied out by that task that you cannot find your own energy to produce your own work?
Well, for instance, this year, I have written 2 poems in 4 months, which is absolutely not what I do usually. I try to write a couple of poems every week, usually. But this year I was not able to do it. It's just, difficult to manage both for me right now. But I do. I try to write early in the semester, so that things are just moving, slowly. We don't have too many. I don't have to look at their work so much. So I start to write at the beginning of the semester, and I can write until basically midterm, when we usually in my classes we start workshopping, and then once we start workshopping, I can't, because I have to pay attention to my students' work and help them, with their own voices, and so that that affects. Then I read. But the good thing is that if I don't write, I read, and that always helps me in my writing later on. So when I get to that point where I know I should probably not write because there is going to be an interference, then I just pick up a bunch of books and then I read. I've always a list of books I need to read. So, but it is true that it is challenging to write your own thing while you're so involved into what you read and what you want to teach, and the students' writing as well. A question? Yeah?
You mentioned earlier that you write music and you use several quotes from lyrics. I was wondering, is there a genre of music you find difficult to write to, and do you challenge yourself to write to that sort of music to see what you can produce?
No, I don't do that, because when it's too difficult, when the music is too difficult and doesn't inspire me, then I cannot write. But it depends. Like the project I'm working on right now, I'm not using music at all. This is a sort of a new thing for me. But usually I use music, and I'll use the same CD, and I'll play it over and over. I'm a little obsessive in that way. Over and over and over and over, until I'm done with, because it helps me get back into that sort of emotional state I need to be in, maybe. I don't play classical music, though. There are lyrics, obviously, and they slip into my writing, and sometimes I think, I just put it in there because it fits with what I'm doing. My work is really constructed, I think. You know, I like to use other people's words. So it could be music, it can be, you know, my favorite writers, you know, something like that. Any other question? Yeah?
Could I just ask one more question about
Yeah.
language? It makes sense that you switch between English and French.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious as to what prompts the switch. Why a particular phrase or a particular word in the other language? Do you know?
Well, sometimes there are things that are not. I just think they're not really translatable, like things that some people might have said, let's say in my family, for instance. There's something in French, and it's very simple, and it would not work for me to translate it. It's just a gut feeling more than anything else. But very often I quote my favorite French writers. Marguerite Duras, for instance, I will quote her when I want to say something, then I'll quote her in French, or sometimes I'll quote her in English too, actually. And I'm trying not to put too much French because I don't want to translate it. I have notes at the end of my books on, you know, that can help, you know, with the text. But I purposely do not translate my the French, because I would like to create this sense of if you don't speak French, you know, then you feel the way I feel when I don't understand something, you know, that is said. I'm pretty fluent, obviously, in English, but if I go into an area, a different, you know, area of the country, now I'm pretty comfortable with the southern accent. But if I go to another area of the country, you know, and then, you know, people may speak a little faster or something like that, and, you know, I really have to pay attention, and I'm not sure. So, you know, I think it's part of who I am, and so I want to show that, you know, but the only way for me to show it is to put some French, which is part of me, the little bit of Frenchness that is left in me, you know, and have it like, you know, in my work, and I don't want to translate it.
If your poems were translated into French, the part that's already French would stay French.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Yeah, they would have to stay French, I suppose. So the effect would be lost. Oh, well. I know, but I thought of it, though, and I've been thinking about it, how it would happen. I don't want to translate my own work. As one thing. I've tried, and I thought, nah, I'm just not going to do that. But if I had to translate, if it was translated in French, and I thought of it, then that effect would disappear, I think, because it would be sort of silly to translate something in French, you know, do like a translation of a translation. So, is it time for us to leave? I think it is. It's 1:20. Yeah. Well. No more question? That's good? Okay.